Previously on Chaos Head Noah.
わかんない。自分でもなんでお兄の部屋の前にいたのかよく思い出せないの。
Don't tell me. Did she have amnesia?
シワだらけの子供に会わなかった。車椅子に乗ってる怪しいやつなんだけど。
うん。
携帯なくしたような。
なくしたのかな。そもそも7の服どこに置いてきちゃったんだろう。
誰かにひどいことされなかったか。
ひどいことって？
もしもし。
Nanami?
誰？
お兄。
It was Nanami. I breathed a sigh of relief. Where the hell was she even calling from? It had only been a few hours. What happened to her being exhausted and not wanting to leave?
ナナミか。どこにいるんだ？
右手を返して。7の右手。
It disconnected. Nothing she said made any sense to me. When Nanami finally finished making the food, she carried it over to the table and set it down. At the very least, it looked pretty appealing. Nanami had been our mom's helper in the kitchen for as long as I could remember. Suffice to say, her cooking skills were pretty passable. Well, she was definitely lucky, because if she sucked at cooking, she wouldn't be able to pull that sheepish smile and say, and the oopsie daisy tee hee. Only 2D girls had that right. I'd immediately go soft if my 3D sister did that IRL. Hell, I'd probably never talk to her again. So you would prefer to be hard around your sister then, rather than go soft? Is that what you're saying, Takumi? It's quite a damning statement, if I do say so myself.
28日未明、渋谷区小東の路上で男性の変死体が発見されました。
Okay, I guess we're just looking at this now. Anyway, what corpse is this?
被害者は練馬区に住む橋谷康之さん31歳で、死因は異物を喉に詰まらせたことによる窒息死とみられています。被害者の口にはハサミで細かく切り刻まれた大量の布が詰め込まれており、また胃の中からも同様の布が多数見つかりました。警察の発表によりますと、布は渋谷区にある私立水明学園の女子冬用制服である可能性が高いとのことです。
Well, I think we just figured out where Nanami's uniform went.
水明学園は現場から徒歩で3分ほどの距離にあり、警察では事件との関連を調べています。
Another new case. And since it couldn't have just been a normal murder, a girl's winter uniform from Sume had been cut up with scissors and jammed into the victim's throat, choking him. I told her about Shogun, about how I'd witnessed the third new-gen murder case, the crucifixion, and after that, countless strange, terrifying things had been following me without end. I told her about the threatening emails and other messages Shogun had sent me right before she landed naked on my doorstep. And lastly, I told her about the 2 prank calls I received from a fake version of her. At first, Nanami forced a smile and said, "Big bro, don't you think you're being kind of delusional?" But eventually, she realized I wasn't joking around, and her expression stiffened.
いいか、これからしばらくは一人で外に出ちゃダメだ。どこで襲われるかわからないから。
お兄、ナナ怖いよ。
僕だって怖いよ。だから二人で協力するんだ。
If the two of us stuck together, we could keep each other safe. Not that I had any clue how a shitty older brother like me could keep her safe, nor how I'd support her feelings and whatnot. All I knew was that I couldn't bear it if she left me alone.
昔はお兄が病院に行くようになる前はナナはいつもお兄に甘えてたよね。お兄はナナにとっては頼りになるお兄だった。お兄のこと大好きだった。
Past tense, huh?
だから今度はナナがしっかりして少しでもお兄の負担にならないようにしてお兄の役に立とうと思って。あんまり役に立ててたかどうかわかんないけど。
ダメな兄貴でごめん。
Maybe it was because of where I was, but for whatever reason, it was easier to say things I wouldn't normally say.
気にしないでいいよ。兄弟だもん。それにナナは昔の頼りがいのあるお兄のことも知ってるし。どんなにダメでもナナはお兄のこと嫌いになんてならないからね。
ナナミ。
Not a single reply all week. I'm not the sort of moron you're making me out to be. If that's your plan, then I'll see to it that Nanami-chan gets tortured even more. If I ever do it a bit and she ends up dead, don't blame me for it. It'd be all your fault, not mine. You're the bad guy here. No, it's you. What's going on here? What's going on, goddammit? Calm down. Take a deep breath. Now stop for a second and think. This was all just a delusion. Yeah, it was all just a dream. Just a dream, Takumi. I was gonna wake up, and then the laugh track would ensue. Then I'd realize I was sleeping with Nanami in my bed. Then I'd be back in reality. A knocking sound resounded from my door. It was coming from outside. Who was it?
お兄。
Suddenly, I heard Nanami's voice come from behind me. In front of me was Nanami, covered in blood. Behind me was Nanami, calling out to me. Fear gripping me, I nervously turned around. And behind me was Nanami, wearing the clothes I'd lent her, her right hand still perfectly attached. There were 2 Nanamis.
そいつ誰？
Yikes. The 2 Nanamis spoke in unison. When Nanami saw Nanami, her expression grew puzzled. When Nanami also saw Nanami, her expression grew tearful. Caught between 2 Nanamis, Holy shit.
これは妄想だ。
Now this is quite the sister sandwich we found ourselves trapped in, huh, Takumi?
タクが今考えた通りなの。
Behind the fallen Nanami, standing outside the door, was
リミ。
wielding a wing-like D-sword. Sakihara Rimi was standing right there. Our eyes met. She looked at me with deeply sad eyes.
あなたが今右手を握っているそのナナちゃんはあなたがリアルブートしようとしている存在。
Real boot.
現実に耐えられなくなったあなたが産んだの。理 ソードを持ってるナナちゃんが本物なんだよ。嘘言わないでよ。ナナの方が本物だもん。たく、あなたはナナちゃんの切断された手首を見てショック状態になったの。そして妄想した。そんな手首は見てないって。ナナちゃんは5体満足で無事だって。
And so it continues. Greetings, my name's Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Chaos Head Noah. So, apparently I screwed up. Turns out there was actually only around 6 to 10 something minutes left of Nanami's route. But I had no idea there was only that little bit of story content left, so I just assumed that there'd probably be enough for another full episode at the very least, if I were to come back to it. So I decided to just cut things off at the last episode like I did with that assumption in mind, and well, yeah, I was wrong. So this is going to be a very, 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 very short remaining segment for Nanami's story route before I then decide to promptly go on to the next heroine's route. So without any further ado, let's finish Nanami's route and then figure out our next story route. Or at least I've already figured it out, but you know what I'm trying to say. When I opened my eyes, I saw the familiar ceiling of my container house. I was lying on my back, right on top of my bed. Huh? Had I fallen asleep? It felt like I'd just been dreaming about something truly horrifying. Like I'd just been dreaming about something truly nauseating. But it had been just a dream. It couldn't have been anything else. Whether that was reality or was just a dream, it didn't matter to me. Whether this was reality or just a delusion, it didn't matter either. I felt a gentle weight on my chest. Moving my eyes toward it, I saw her. It was Nanami, sprawled out on my chest. Which one? Our eyes met. Nanami was watching me closely. Her eyes were wet. Her cheeks dyed the color of cherry blossoms.
昨日の夜はありがとう。
At first, I didn't understand what she meant.
ナナの気持ち受け入れてくれて嬉しかった。お兄に愛してもらえて嬉しかった。
This seems a bit incestuous.
お兄のこと今までよりずっと好きになっちゃった。
Right, so this must have been one of those so-called character routes you saw in Eroge. And surprisingly enough, I took the situation in stride. Speak for yourself, I'm not surprised. I know how much of a deviant you are. Nanami seemed cuter than ever right now. I couldn't help but think about how lovable she was. I saw her both as my sister and as a girl. Like I said, seems a bit incestuous.
これからもたくさんナナのこと愛してね。
だが断るって言ったら
Old habits die hard, I guess. Nanami's face soured as she sat up.
もう真面目な話してるのにお兄のバカ。
She got out of bed. Crap. How could I possibly make it up to her? That was when I noticed what was in my hand. Bringing it closer to my face, I realized what it was. A bangle. It wasn't the one I'd given her before, however. This one was way fancier. way cuter. It would look really good on her. Thinking that to myself, I got out of bed too.
ナナミ、これプレゼント。
I slipped it on Nanami's right wrist as she stared blankly at me. It was a little like putting a wedding ring on her finger, and that made me feel pretty damn awkward. You're the one making that comparison, so the awkward feelings you're feeling right now, that's entirely on you.
あー、かわいいバングルだ。ナナにくれるの？
When I nodded, Nanami smiled from the bottom of her heart. She looked happier than I'd ever seen her before.
大事にするね。
ナナミ、僕たちはずっと一緒だよね。
え？いきなりどうしたの？
ずっと一緒にいたいんだ。ナナミとずっと一緒に。
やだな。そんな大胆なこと言い出すなんてお兄らしくないよ。熱でもあるの？
Probably nowhere near as bold as whatever you two did last night, according to you.
あ、わかった。からかってるんでしょう。
本気だよ。
お兄、それって兄弟として？それとも一人の女の子として？
両方。
両方。両方か。
Dirty boy. Dirty, dirty, dirty!
お兄の気持ち初めて聞けたかも。ナナのことそんな風に思ってたんだ。
キモいかな。
キモくないよ。むしろすごく嬉しい。
Well, that's because you're a freak too.
お兄がそこまで言ってくれたんだし、しょうがないからナナも一緒にいてあげるよ。ただし一つだけね、条件があるの。
And what would that be?
条件？
あのね。
Nanami squirmed ever so slightly. Her face turned bright red. She didn't stare directly into my eyes.
キスしてほしいな。
Those were her words. I'd do anything Nanami asked. My mind was already made up. She and I would live together, just the two of us. I didn't need anything else. As long as I had Nanami, nothing else mattered.
ダメ？兄弟でキスなんて不潔かな。
I shook my head.
そんなことないよ。
お兄。
With those words, Nanami leapt into my arms and kissed me. I was kissing my little sister. My sister's sweet sighs passed through my lips. I was overwhelmed with happiness, along with feelings of intense fulfillment. I was brimming with love for Nanami. But, for some reason, for only just a moment, I felt incredibly sad. Warm drops found their way down my cheeks. I was wondering when this would come crashing down. And as those tears floated, hey, give me a chance to read, man! Swirls Nanami was, I wouldn't let anyone harm it. I'd make... Yeah, I'll just read it silently. Fuck it. Oh, wait. Is this a dying dream that he's having? That's what this is, and I gotta say, certainly one hell of a dying dream, man. Not gonna lie. Reach the daydream ending. Well, nothing like a little bit of dying wet dreams involving sibling incest in order to start today's episode. Ending. Yep, there it is. Daydream is right there. And we're already at 73% achievement rate for the album. Making good progress, if I do say so myself. So, my thoughts on Nanami's route overall. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked that it lasted only as long as it did. Again, I thought I'd get at least another episode or so of more content than what I ultimately ended up getting. I mean, the main story was a lot of the background stuff that was occurring in the main story was clearly still going on and was going to continue going on regardless of whatever happened between Takumi and his delusional Nanami, but it still ended surprisingly abruptly. But not gonna lie, it's kind of a letdown. Not just on that front either, but I don't really feel like as though we really got to explore, Takumi and Nanami's relationship, whether it be, especially during their childhood, anywhere as much as I was hoping to, just so I could get some more background information on just that particular thing in of itself, because that information would actually help me in turn learn more about Shogun. But no, all that ended up really happening was just, for the most part, not only they just ended up staying at Takumi's place after she showed up on his doorstep and naked as the day she was born, literally in this case. But couple real world hours later, in comes the real Nanami, and well, yeah, everything, like I said, just comes crashing down afterward. doesn't really feel like as though this particular route really adds anything in regards to our understanding of Nanami as a character, or her relationships with Takumi, or anybody else for that matter. It was just a surprisingly short distraction from the main story that just, again, abruptly ends. So yeah, I mean, I can't help but feel slightly disappointed because of that. Alright, so now that we apparently got Nanami's story route out of the way, I guess it's now time for me to pick out our next route, and I've already made a decision on who that's going to be. I decide that I'm going to look into Yua's story route next, for similar reasons as to why I wanted to learn more about Nanami through her route. Is I kind of want to learn more about her particular background in relation to her dead sister, and any events that weren't explained, any events that weren't explained in the main story that could help contextualize her own role within the greater narrative better than what the main story was able to do, because, well, its attention was divided among multiple different parties, our main character especially, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna look over this guide I've been consulting real quick to figure out which ending that is. So we just saw the Daydream one, so let me look at Moon and Sun. Oh. Wow, this is awfully convenient. It looks like the next ending on this guide I'm looking at just so happens to be Yua's. It's awfully convenient. Okay. So let's go ahead and start. Let's go ahead and start over, and I will just consult this thing as needed, and we will just proceed from there. Okay, it wants me to go neutral with this first one, and then the subsequent yes/no prompts. It's just a coincidence? Nope. I'm making it up. It's all in my head. Nope. New gen killer is somewhere in the school. Yep. Whoever wrote this is trying to provoke me. Yep. And I should definitely erase it now. Yep.
なあ、どうしたんだ?
Okay, then according to this thing now, as I progress, I'll get some Yua-related intermissions interspersed throughout the story, similar to what we saw with Nanami, and then the game will branch into the Moon and Sun ending in Chapter 7 proper. Misumi-kun walked up to me, grabbed my shoulder, and gave me a good shake.
聞いてる? おい、タク.
It must have just been a common phrase. Or something. In other words, it was just a stupid, pointless scribble. I tried to tell myself that, but I still couldn't calm down. So in the end, I just went up and erased it, moving quickly so that nobody would notice. Thought there'd be a little bit more to it than that. How do I want to answer this, I wonder? I got it. I'll try to be pervy with this. Okay, let's see. choose this one. This one. Huh. Thought there'd be more than just these two.
はい、おつ
Do I have my diagnostic? Oh, what's this? The aconitum. The memory of her bangle. The symbol of her love for her brother, taking shape as a blade. Oh, this is Nanami's. This is Nanami's D-sword. Influenced by her strong desire to not let anyone else have it, even the hilt itself is made of blades. This makes it impossible for even other gigalomaniacs to hold or wield the sword. A weapon only she alone can wield. Diagnostic results. You are slightly delusional. Only slightly. Perhaps not everything in your life is going favorably, but you have one or more things that you can devote yourself to, and you work hard at them every day. For this reason, you probably don't have much time for things like delusions. If you keep trying your hardest, you should be able to live a fulfilling life. But I urge you to please be careful. If you by some chance fail, or lose one of the things you have devoted yourself to, you may suddenly find yourself tempted to abandon everything and escape into delusions. Ooh, 2 words. A word from Nanami. If you're going to turn out like my big bro, make sure you're someone other people can rely on when things get tough. Even better, if you stay in tune with the latest fashion trends. Oh, and it'd make me real happy if you made sure to take care of your family, too. A word from Sena. Whatever you're aiming to do, push as hard as you possibly can to achieve it. But if you need a break, take one. It's not smart to work too hard. You'll just end up burning yourself out. I recommend adding a good walk to your daily routine. My shoes are not made for walking!
20 minutes later.
So, I am absolutely furious with myself right now. Because, turns out that, at least up to a certain point, and all the way up leading into Chapter 8, I was accidentally hitting the force skip button on my keyboard rather than the regular skip. So there are several story bits to Yua's route that I've undoubtedly accidentally skipped over. And I had to consult another person's Let's Play in order to figure out an approximation on where some of the new story content is. And this is the scene that I'm currently at here, right at the beginning of Chapter 8. And well, I'm just gonna play it. I'm just going to play it as normal for the next few scenes until I get to a point where I think I will need to skip ahead a little bit again. But yeah. I just accidentally created some extra work for myself here and ended up wasting a significant chunk of time. All because I had the brilliant idea to hold the key that was the force skip rather than the regular skip, because I forgot that force skip was also on the keyboard. Apologies in advance if post-production this ends up being a very short episode, but well, if that turns out to be the case, well, now you all know why, and well, hopefully I can avoid making that mistake again in the future. Really, really sorry. Amose's angry voice hurled into him as he entered into the office. In response to this, Bond gave a minor shrug, then proceeded to walk up to the front to the desk of Frisia's president with an amiable smile on his face. He had not brought any refreshments today, something he was beginning to believe may have been a lapse in judgment.
あら、つばちゃんは
今日は別行動。
若い子をこき使ってバンちゃんは楽してるわけね。
いやいや、俺もちゃんとやってるよ。昨日だって徹夜でいろいろ調べてたんだぜ。おかげで最近の女子高生の生態についてはかなり詳しくなった。
あんたね、呆れて物も言えないわ。
で、こうして俺を呼びつけたってことは、あの子と連絡取れたってこと？
今来てるわ。
さすがももちゃん。ちなみに可愛い子かい
Momose promptly smacked Bon over the head, stopping his opportunistic grin in its tracks. The sheer speed with which she had turned her wrist made the slap especially fierce.
いつまでもバカなこと言ってんじゃないわよ、エロ親父。
冗談だって。
Before arriving at the building, Bon had made a private request to Momose. It entailed setting up a meeting between him and a certain person connected to the new gen cases. Rather than anything work-related, it was merely to satiate a personal curiosity. He was not planning on talking about anything related to the new gen investigations for the time being. And due to his position, Bon could not simply meet with the person on his own, else he would risk drawing the ire of the detectives he was getting ahead of. Momose urged Bon over to a corner of the office. It was a fairly cramped space, almost all of which was already taken up by shelves packed full of files. The location was used as a reception area of sorts, and a pair of love seats had been wedged into the only place they could fit. Bon entered the section after Momose, and his eyes landed upon a lone girl sitting in one of the love seats. The girl was wearing a Sume Academy uniform. Her head and shoulders were curved toward the ground, and she looked incredibly haggard.
ごめんね、お待たせしちゃって。
The girl looked up in startlement upon hearing Momose. In the process, her glasses had slipped down her nose a bit, leading her to swiftly readjust them with her finger.
あ、いえ、平気です。
When she saw Bon, her expression turned slightly fearful, before bowing her head and greeting a moment later. Bon felt something was somewhat hurt by this. He had made every attempt to look as non-threatening as possible in both bearing and appearance, but the girl's reaction made him realize that, despite his best efforts, the ferocity of intimidation particular to detectives was seeping out all the same. Looks like I've still got a lot more practicing to do, he thought with bitter amusement as he sat across from Yua.
楠木優愛さんだね。
はい。
亡くなった美愛さんの双子の姉。それで間違いないかな。
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this bit of dialogue is certainly different. Yua slightly adjusted her posture, then returned a nod. The first New Gen incident, the group dive. Among the 5 high schoolers that had leapt to their deaths was a girl named Kusunoki Miya.
まあ、そんな緊張しなさんな。君を取り調べようなんて思っちゃねえんだ。雑談程度に思ってよ。本題に入る前にちょっと聞いていいかい？ゆあちゃんは妹さんが亡くなったことについてどう思う？
ちょっとバンちゃん。
あ、悪いね。職業病ってやつか。気を使うような言い方できなくってな。ただ気になってたんだ。捜査本部でも話題になってたんだが、楠木美也さんの遺族は奇妙だって。
ばあちゃん！
いえ、いいんです。
Before Momose could rise to her feet over Bon's insensitive comment, Yua stopped her.
私もおかしいって思いますから。
ああ。
集団ライブで飛び降りた5人には自殺する理由なんてなかった。 家族や友人はみんなそう主張している。だがミヤさんの家族だけは違った。
Bond took his fan out from his belt to begin cooling himself.
何も主張しなかった。あっさり受け入れたって聞いてる。あまりに何も言わなさすぎて奇妙だったってな。なんでだい？
お父さんもお母さんもミヤちゃんが死んでからおかしくなっちゃったんです。
Anguish seeped from Yua's voice.
最初はミヤちゃんの事件の知らせを受けた日はそれでも泣いていたんです。お父さんもお母さんもとても辛そうでした。でも次の日の朝、なぜか二人は楽しそうに笑っていたんです。ミヤちゃんが死ぬ前と全く同じに戻ってたんです。たった一日で。私わけがわからなくて、二人はミヤちゃんのこと忘れようとしてるんじゃないかって思って、そうしたらお父さんが笑いながら「お前に妹なんていないよ」って。ミヤちゃんが残した洋服とか靴とかを見せても全然取り合ってくれないんです。それはお前のために予備で買ってあったものだって。そうやってお父さんたちはニュースからも警察の話からも目を背けて、記憶からミヤちゃんのことを消し去ろうとしてるんです。
つまり双子じゃなかったことに？
それで警察にもうちは一人っ子だって言って追い返してたわけか。
私とミヤちゃんは一卵性で、見た目は瓜二つなんですけど、あの子は、妹は親から嫌われていました。あの子はいつも自分の気持ちを押し殺して私のことを一番に考えてくれていたんです。
As Yua spoke, memories from when Mia had still been alive resurfaced in her mind. First came a memory from when the two had still been in elementary school. One day, some relatives had brought the girls a single large teddy bear as a present. In contrast to the raw joy Yua displayed, Mia insisted that she did not like stuffed animals, and proceeded to not even so much as look the plush's way. Both her relatives and parents were upset with Mia for not acting as a child should. But despite Mia's protesting, Yua whispered to her that the two of them could share it, that it could be something they could both treasure. However, in response to her sister's kindness, Mia simply said that she did not want it, and that Yua could have it. About a month later, when Yua had grown tired of the teddy bear, she woke up in the night and happened to witness a certain scene. With an incredibly joyful look on her face, Mia was hugging and talking to the bear plushie. This was the first time Yua had ever seen her sister so happy. It seems the same as the other route, though. And from this, she realized that her sister's insistence about disliking stuffed animals had been a lie. Mia had been keeping her own feelings hidden, all for the sake of her older sister. The next day, Yua found a lovely drawing of a bear beneath Mia's pillow. I think this is new. Till her sister grew tired of the teddy bear, Mia had been hugging and sleeping with the drawing in lieu of it. Things very similar to this happened again and again over all the 18 years they had spent together. For their birthday celebrations, Yua had always blown the candles out on the cake. But when Mia was prompted to do it, she would say, "I refuse to do something so ridiculous," angering her parents. Yua advanced to the private high school Sume Academy. Mia, meanwhile, had been misbehaving at school, deliberately scoring low on exams, and thereby moved on to a public high school. Due to the exorbitant fees, their parents would only have been able to afford sending one of them to a private school. No matter how hard Yua would try to let her sister have something, Mia would always gain the upper hand and force Yua to be prioritized. To achieve this end, she even intentionally took a dislikable attitude.
私は結局みやちゃんの優しさに甘えて今まで自分だけいい思いをしてきました。みやちゃんがいなくなって初めてもっとあの子のために何かできることがあったはずだってすごく後悔して、私が代わりに知ってあげればよかった。しかも挙句に親に存在そのものを忘れられてしまうなんて、こんなのあんまりです。あんまりにも悲しいです。
Yua, having now reached her limit, could no longer squeeze out any more words. She took off her glasses, pressed her fingers against the corners of her eyes, and broke down in tears. Momose sat down beside her and gently rubbed her back.
それでゆあちゃんは一人で事件のことを調べていたらしいの。みやちゃんに一体何があったのか知るためにね。
そりゃ大変だったろ。
そして一人の人物を突き止めた。
As Momose held Yua's shoulders, she turned her eyes toward Bon.
西条匠くんよ。
なるほどね。
Stroking a stubble on his chin, Bon leaned forward from the sofa.
いつだったか西条と追跡劇をしてたっていう女子高生の話を所轄のデカから聞いたんだが、もしかしてユアちゃんだったりする？
Yua nodded apologetically.
興味あるな。詳しく聞かせてもおうと思ったけどちょっとごめんよ。
With a strained smile, Bon lightly bowed his head to Yua and Momose. His words had been interrupted by the cell phone in his suit pocket. He swiftly took out the phone and checked the screen. Suwa's name was displayed across it.
もしもし、どうした？
先輩、7番目っす。
なんだと？
Suwa's voice sounded strained. The sounds of investigators frantically scurrying about could be heard through the phone. Suwa must have been at the investigation headquarters.
ニュージェネ第7の事件が起きたんすよ。
Bon's eyes opened wide, and his expression turned bitter as his teeth sank into his lip. Sensing the seriousness of the situation from his behavior, Momose Niwa watched the detective with unease.
ガイシャは3人、友人同士らしいっす。3人とも胴体から体が切断されてて、それぞれの上半身と下半身を別々に入れ替えて手ぐす、釣りとっすね。それで縫い付けられてたっす。それと額にそれぞれ Q、D、N って読める傷が。
何かのメッセージか？
さあ、そこまでは。それと気になることが。司法解剖の結果は分かったんですけど、ガイシャの胴体の切断部はノコギリとか包丁とかそういう刃物で切断されたものじゃないって。
どういう意味だ？
なんか強い力で引きちぎられたそうっす。
引きちぎられた。
Bon repeated Suwa's words back to him with a low groan, then roughly scratched his head with the handle of his fan.
まるで怪獣だな。あるいは最近流行りの魔法使いとかな。
先輩、それマジで言ってんすか？映画オタクの自分でも さすがにその意見には同意しかねるっす。
Whatever you say, Suwa. Whatever you say.
例えだバカな。いいからさっさと捜査に戻れ。
After barking out orders to Suwa, Bon ended the call. I believe this scene is also new, right here, what we're looking at. By the time Yua finished up with Bon and Momose and left Frisia, the sky had long since been covered by a thick veil of darkness. During the time she had spent there, Yua had explained all the suspicions she had gathered from her investigation of Nishijo Takumi. Bon was a detective, and Momose was the head of a private investigation agency. If she could get the two of them on her side, then perhaps Nishijo Takumi would finally be arrested. That was what Yua had been hoping for. Nishijo Takumi needed to be arrested. Yua had sympathy for the boy's painful circumstances, so she would have preferred it if he had turned himself in to the authorities. But since he had refused to do so, she had no choice but to get the police involved. That had been her plan at any rate. But much to her surprise, Detective Bon had told her that Nishijo Takumi had been removed from the list of suspects. Yua found this news absolutely unbelievable. She did not want to accept it. Why had her theory been dismissed? It was blatantly obvious that Nishijo Takumi was behind New-Gen. Biting down hard on her lip, Yua increased her pace as she hurried toward the station. She had to return home as quickly as possible, investigate the case from top to bottom, and find some conclusive evidence. And with that evidence, she would be able to prove her theory correct to Detective Bon.
あれ？楠木さんところのお嬢さんじゃないっすか。
Ugh, is that Suwa? The sudden sound of her name startled Yua, stopping her dead in her tracks. The words from her homeroom teacher came to mind. Shibuya has become all too dangerous lately. Women really shouldn't be out alone at night right now. Remembering that warning, Yua froze completely. The voice she had just heard belonged to a rather friendly-looking young man. Yeah. She felt like she had seen him somewhere before, but at the moment could not remember exactly where.
覚えてないっすか？自分、諏訪守って言います。ほら、こういうものっすよ。
Making sure that only Yua could see it, the man took out his police badge and showed it to her, then quickly shoved it back inside his suit pocket.
集団ダイブの後、一度楠木さんのお宅に伺ったことありますよ。その時にユアちゃんともいろいろお話ししたんすけどね。
So you're the one that likely had a hand in her parents' memories being fucked with. Am I right?
すいません、思い出しました。その説はどうも。
Yua bowed her head. The incident had really shaken her to her core. So much so that she genuinely could not recall Suwa's face. However, their talk back then had indeed helped Yua sort out her thoughts regarding the bizarre nature of her sister's death. And for that, she was truly grateful to him.
さっきまでバン刑事と一緒だったんじゃないっすか？
バンさんとお知り合いなんですか？
そりゃ同じ警視庁捜査一課っすから。自分の先輩っすよ。いつも怒られてます。よっぽど若い女の子と話せるのが嬉しかったんすね。
You wish. You don't deserve a break.
ここだけの話っすけど、今日ユアちゃんと会うって自分に教えてくれた時の先輩、鼻の下伸ばしちゃってどう見てもスケベ親父って感じだったっす。
Yeah, well, whatever creepy face that Bond could conjure up pales in comparison to the smiles your face can conjure up.
できれば自分も同席したかったんすけど、捜査から抜け出せなくて。そうそう、ゆあちゃんのご両親には連絡行ってるんすかね。多分行ってると思うんすけど。どうかな。
連絡と言いますと？
いや、集団ダイブのね、犯人が使ったと思われる遺留品が見つかったんすよ。
本当ですか？
It was the first Yua had heard of this. With all hesitation now evaporated, she stepped closer to Suwa.
どんなものだと思うっすか？最近別の事件でマスコミが散々取り上げてるんで有名だと思うんすけど、なんとダーススパイダーのヘルメットっす。
それを集団ダイブの犯人もかぶっていたんですか？
そう、ネットに事件の様子を撮影したビデオが流出したっすよね。あれを解析した結果分かったんすよ。それにしてもダーススパイダーといえば例の渋谷エスパー騒動の少年が有名っすよね。西条匠くんでしたっけ。なんで彼が集団ダイブの犯人と同じようにダーススパイダーのヘルメットを持ってたんすかね。
Oh, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to set Yua to go off after him, aren't you? The moment she heard those words, dark impulses began to flood Yua's heart. She had been completely convinced. She had only begun feeling it a few moments ago, that all she needed was one piece of decisive evidence, one piece to prove herself to Bon and Mimose. And now, she had it.
さてと、それじゃあ自分フリージアに行くんで、この辺で失礼します。
I heard that. And with that, Suwa waved goodbye and left. All by herself now, Yua stared down at the pavement, utterly paralyzed.
彼だわ。
Her murmurs were to no one but herself.
彼なの。やっぱり彼だった。彼しかいない。彼に間違いない。彼が妹を殺したのよ。彼がミワを殺したのよ。
Okay. So, let me see here. Yeah, we're still in new story content from the looks of it, so let's keep going. I think it's somewhere in the middle of this very scene right here is when I realized I was hitting the force skip key and stopped what I was doing. So once we get to that point, I'll know for sure where we'll be back in safe territory by then. Got a little tongue twisted there. Yo! Aye, Nineheart-kun! I've been waiting for you. Oh, I know you have. Because there's been another nude gen. What are you even on about? Insert ASCII art here. New gen, dude? What the fuck do you think I'm on about? How exactly did we go from nude gen to nude gen? New generation, new gen, nude gen, nude gen. Come on, that shit's obvious. Use common sense for fuck's sake. More importantly, there's a seventh case. Seventh case. It happened again. Another new gen. How long was this damn thing gonna go on for? Was I next? Would I be the victim of the 8th case? The 9th? Anxiety aside, Grim was pretty much the new gen news guy at this point. He'd been keeping me in the loop about basically everything. Even now, he was going out of his way to link a bunch of blog posts and news articles about it. Seems like he really wanted me to take a look. Biting my lip, I reluctantly clicked the first link. So it looks familiar. Okay, new gen for the win! Wait, it says Dokyun? LMAO. Literally zero connection to the other cases. These are dumb as fuck, Ruffle. You trying to say it's one of us anti-Dokyuns? With their lower bodies swapped around shit, it's like a puzzle. But with corpses. Corpse puzzle! If only I could trade my upper body for some alphas, LMAO. Our Esper boy, Nishijo will sniff out the perp for us anytime now, lol. New gen bearer.
今日午前4時50分ごろ、東京都渋谷区の線路沿いで男性3人の他殺死体が鉄柱に吊り下げられているのを通りかかった新聞販売員の男性が発見しました。警察の調べによりますと、殺されたのはいずれも渋谷区に住む無職藤田康平さん、大学生の安沢三郎さん、とび職の高木亮さんの3人です。3人とも胴体の部分が切断され、それぞれの上半身と下半身が別々に入れ替えられて糸で縫合されていました。3人の額にはそれぞれ謎の傷がつけられており、警察では犯人からのメッセージではないかとみて調べています。渋谷では2ヶ月ほど前から猟奇殺人事件が頻発しており、警察では今回の事件も同一犯による犯行の可能性が高いとみて捜査を続けています。
At the end of the news clip, photographs of the 3 victims were shown. I had seen those faces before.
あいつらだ。昨日僕に絡んできた。
I'd given them my wallet, but they kicked my ass anyway. I'd then fallen unconscious, and when I woke up, Kozupi was beside me. The 3 of them had been collapsed on the ground, covered in blood. I dug my wallet out from my pocket and stared at it intently. When I came to, Kozupi had been carrying it, and she'd given it back to me soon after. Could the person who killed those 3 be? No, definitely not. The last time I'd seen them, they'd been beaten to a pulp and covered in blood, but they hadn't been cut in half or anything. Which would mean they'd been killed after Kozupi and I had left. It had to have been Shogun after all. Was he trying to provoke me? Was I next? Would I be the next one to die? It was also possible that Shogun could show up in person again. He seemed to be playing with me like it was some kind of game after all. Maybe he'd feel like sending me on another quest soon. Just the thought alone terrified me. Free me. Save me. Please. Where did you go? Weren't you supposed to protect me? She is protecting you. The other you. Oh. Did I hear something? Just now, there'd been a knock at the door. Someone was there. I looked at my clock on my PC. It was past 8 p.m. Who in their right mind would show up this late? Wait. Rimi. It had to be her. She'd finally come to save me. No, it's not Rimi. She'd said she would stay by my side, hadn't she? So it only made sense that she'd come back to me. Would it have killed her to come a little earlier, though? Feeling like my salvation was at hand, I practically threw myself at the door. I then removed the padlock and opened the door.
Rim!
I tried to call out Rimi's name, but a hand suddenly clamped my mouth shut. Panic instantly overwhelmed me. I didn't even have the chance to see who it was. I tried forcing a hand off my mouth, but before I could, my attacker threw all their weight against me, and I staggered backward. Still, I desperately tried to stand my ground. I flailed my arms around wildly, thinking it'd somehow help me break their grasp. I then opened my mouth wide and bit down on their hand as hard as I could. But despite that, my attacker remained silent. They weren't even fazed. I'd been down with all my strength, so they must have been in pain. But they still didn't let go. They pressed against me even harder, causing me to lose my balance. No longer able to resist, I fell to the floor with them on top of me. The back of my head hit the ground so hard, I nearly lost consciousness. My vision started to go blurry, and I couldn't tell how exactly I'd landed. And to top it off, the assailant was still covering my mouth, so tightly in fact that I could barely breathe. My consciousness was starting to fade, so before I blacked out, I desperately tried to get a glimpse of the person who'd attacked me. Yua? Oh god, I'd completely forgotten about her. I was so focused on Shogun, his number one underling slipped my mind. Realizing that, the sheer terror sent shivers down my entire body. I struggled as hard as I could, desperately trying to escape. But under the full weight of her body, I couldn't move an inch. Under normal circumstances, I would have been focused on the fact that our bodies were pressed together, but I lacked the capacity for that right now. Now wasn't a time to be drooling over female contact. There was only one thing on my mind. I needed to get away somehow, or she'd kill me. Blood trickled out of Yua's hand where I'd bitten her. Even so, she kept pressing down with all her might, her grip just as intense as when she first grabbed hold of me. She was trying relentlessly to keep my jaw shut, to the point where her nails were digging into my cheeks. A sharp, stabbing pain pierced through my body. Her mutters became between ragged breaths, much to my horror. I had to keep resisting, so I grabbed Yua's long hair and pulled hard. But Yua still didn't budge. All she did was grimace. Using her free hand, she gripped my hand tightly and dug her nails once again. The immense pain forced me to let go. And then, using that tiny opening, she pinned my hands to the floor. Punch her in the throat! Yua's glasses had slipped down her nose during the fight. Tears were rolling up behind them, likely from the pain of me pulling her hair. Just like that day at Shoto Park, she was staring right through me with those cold, sharp eyes. What the hell is she talking about? Was it the same bullshit as always? Calling me the new gen killer? I hadn't killed anyone. You came here to kill me, you dumb bitch! I tried to glare back at Yua, but hers was just too terrifying to confront. Nothing good could come out making eye contact with dangerous people. As soon as I soon came to realize how true that was, how unhinged that look could really be. I looked away, wishing from the depths of my soul that I'd wake up from this nightmare. But
目をそらさないで。
Yua brought her face in even closer. I could feel her ragged breaths on my cheeks.
私を見て。
With how close she was, it was practically impossible to look anywhere else. Her breath was incredibly hot. I wanted to headbutt her, but Yua was pressing down so hard I couldn't even lift my head off the floor.
教えてあげる。あなたが知らないあなたを教えてあげる。あなたの中にはもう一人のあなたがいるの。
TID. Multiple personalities, in other words. When we were at Cafe, Yua said the same thing. But that was just some stupid fucking delusion of hers. She didn't know shit! And she sure as hell didn't know me better than I did.
西条くん、まだ知らないの？自覚できていないの？何も知りませんでしたって許されると思ってるの？今まで何度も忠告してきたのに、どうして聞いてくれないの？あなたの中にはもう一人の人格、将軍がいる。その人格は許されないことをしているの。これ以上放置はできない。これ以上人殺しはさせない。あなたは早く病院へ行って治療すべきよ。それが嫌だと言うなら、私はあなたを警察に突き出す。将軍を放置することは西条くんの罪よ。あなたも人殺しに加担しているんだって理解して。
I don't need to understand shit!
理解できるよね。
I didn't fucking kill anyone!
理解してもらわなきゃ困る。
I don't have multiple personalities.
理解すべきよ。
That's the kind of shit you only see in anime and manga and shit. This is real life. I don't have DID, goddammit!
出てきて。私はあなたと話がしたいの。聞こえているんでしょ？将軍。
I'm not Shogun. You've got the wrong guy. Shogun is someone else. I've met him, for fuck's sake. He uses a wheelchair. He appears out of thin air like some kind of ghost. He's always reading my mind like some sick fucking pervert. You're one to talk. And despite having the voice of a kid, he's covered in wrinkles like an old man. He's my enemy. Don't let me in with him. Just a thought makes me want to puke. Wait, wasn't Yua supposed to be Shogun's underling? I could have sworn she was working for him. Getting it now, buddy? How mistaken you were about that assumption? But really, it did seem like she generally had me and Shogun mixed up.
西条くん、自重して。あなたは少し眠っていて、将軍にその体を渡して。
Even if I do go to sleep, that won't fucking happen. I don't have multiple personalities, you stupid fucking bitch! I tried my hardest to say all that to her, but since her hand was still pressed firmly against my mouth, the best I could do was make a bunch of muffled groans.
出てきなさい。出てきて。出てきて。出られないの？出てこられるはずよ。出たいでしょ。出てこい、人殺し。
Tears began to fall from my eyes. I lost all will to resist. All remaining strength left my body. I was so tired. Why? Why did I have to deal with this psycho? Why did I have to listen to all the bullshit she spewed at me? What had I done to deserve this? This was just too much. All because this delusional stalker had come to the wrong conclusion. And now, no one would save me. Was I going to die? By her hands? Even if I didn't. Even if I made it through today, there'd be no guarantee I'd survive tomorrow. Shogun could still show up at any time. Would I have to live the rest of my life in fear? Please. I didn't want that. I didn't want to live like that. I'd rather go insane and then get locked up in some mental facility somewhere. I'd rather die right here, right now.
どうして泣くの?
Yua slowly began to remove her hand from my mouth. And then, she started lifting herself off me. As soon as her weight was completely off, I felt instant relief.
将軍が出てきたの?
I shook my head lifelessly.
うっざりなんだ。いっそ殺せ。
殺さない。私が殺させない。あなたは罪を償うべきなのよ。そして真実を語るべき。死んで逃げることは許さない。許さないわ。許すわけにはいかないの。
将軍は別にいる。ニュージェネの犯人はそいつだよ。
将軍はあなたよ。あなたなの。あなたしか考えられない。
My words had gone in one ear and out the other. She refused to listen to me. She was completely convinced that she knew the truth. Well, and in a matter of speaking, she does. In a matter of speaking, she's not wrong. There was no point resisting.
将軍、出てきて。出てきてよ。出てきてって言ってるでしょ。どうして出てこないの？あなたがそこにいるのは分かってるのよ。絶対に将軍を引き出してみせるわ。私は諦めないから。それまで絶対に逃がさないから。
What? Wait. Weren't you coming here just to look for this Darth Spider helmet? Where are you going? Yua? Suddenly, Yua stood up and went to close the open container door. She slowly picked the padlock off the floor and used it to lock the door shut. Oh, she's locking us in. Okay. And then, she stashed the key in the pocket of her uniform. Why was she doing this? What was she thinking?
逃がさないから。
Now that's a pose. A faint murmur spoke into no one but herself. One that chilled me to the bone. Of the countless fast food restaurants located throughout Shibuya, every single one was always packed to front to back with young people. Let me save here. I want to check something. Okay, so I'm going to press the proper skip button this time, rather than the force skip. Okay, we're now right where we're supposed to be. For sure. Goody. My earlier fuck-up has been remedied. Of the count... Oh, I just read this. It took a lot of courage for a lone middle-aged man to come to a place like this. After all, he would be sure to stick out like a sore thumb. Those were the thoughts circulating in Bon Yasuji's mind as he sipped his coffee, surrounded on all sides by young people chattering away. The drink in his paper cup was already starting to go cold. Drink, bitch! Drink! A single clear file folder sat on the table in front of him. Inside it was a handful of photocopied documents from the investigation files, many of which were adorned with Bond's countless sticky notes. Bond had arrived at the restaurant about an hour ago, the location where he planned to personally re-examine the file's contents. As for why he had chosen such a busy place like this, he had been removed from the New Gen investigation team a few days prior, but he still wished to independently run background checks on all relevant persons. The copy of the report that Bond was sifting through, which was never intended to leave the police station, had a few images attached to it. One photograph depicted one of the victims of the first New Gen incident, the group dive. Mia, I assume? A girl named Kusunoki Mia. I assumed correctly. Bond's interest had been piqued the previous day when he had met with Mia's older sister, Kusunoki Yua. After hearing Yua describe Mia's personality, he had decided to investigate further. At first, he was also looking into rumors from around Shibuya, such as the high school girl with a sword. But in the end, every lead turned up cold. That is, except for Mia. And after reading through the documents again and again, he still felt like something was off. There was a lot of information which seemed trivial at best, or at the very least, not directly related to the case. But after putting the pieces together, something felt out of place. And when Bond had heard this Yua's story yesterday, that feeling had crept up on him all the more. After all, there was something in the file that Bond could not ignore. A pair of glasses was found among the possessions of Kusunoki Mia, one of the group dive participants. That was the detail that rubbed Bond the wrong way. He took a look at the list of notes taken from various interviews conducted during the investigation. Taking another sip of coffee, Bond let out a befuddled grunt. From her birth all the way until her death, there was not a single photograph of Kusunoki Mia wearing glasses. It was her sister, Kusunoki Yua, that wore them. He had even gone so far as to obtain access to Kusunoki Mia's medical records. Sure enough, she had boasted perfect 20/20 vision, and thus had no need for glasses. Kusunoki Mia had been a quiet girl with an interest in anime, quite the contrast to her happy-go-lucky sister. That all matched up with the description Kusunoki Yua had given. While the 5 victims of the group dive were friends, some reports suggested that their encounter on the rooftop was the first time they had ever met. Allegedly, they were online friends who had gone together for an offline meet. Naturally, their online activity was heavily scrutinized as a part of the investigation, but there were never any signs of suicidal tendencies displayed by the victims. Furthermore, several hours before the group dive, 2 high school girls, who appeared to be twins, had been spotted walking into a fast food restaurant in Shibuya. Bond took a look around. He was sitting in the very same fast food restaurant mentioned in the report. Before sitting down, Bond had also taken the time to speak with one of the restaurant's employees. The employee had told him that the 2 girls had chatted for a while, then proceeded to take a 10-minute bathroom break. What on earth could have taken them so long in there? Bond wondered. Wait, how long were they in there? 10 minutes. Well, 10 minutes isn't... Well, I don't know. Maybe they were constipated. I don't know. It's not that unusual, is it? He stared intently at the women's restroom, which caught him the scornful glare of every young girl nearby. Situational awareness, detective. Practice it. You're getting the ire of the opposite sex. Realizing this, Bond flashed a wry smile before returning his gaze back toward the streets outside the window. Attaboy. No need to bring shame to the police HQ now. "18 excruciating hours had passed since Yua had raided my container. And I bet she hasn't blinked even once. Am I right? Her eyes must look like raisins right now. Look how dry they are. My hands had been tied behind my back and around the leg of my loft bed. Fortunately, I'd been tied sitting down, so it wasn't too exhausting. Unfortunately, the rope coiled around my wrists was constantly digging into them, which was fairly painful. Where'd she get the rope? I somehow managed to doze off for around 3 hours during that time, but it didn't do me any good. I was still very sleepy, likely due to the fact that no one could get any half-decent sleep like this. Damn it. I wasn't into this S&M shit at all. If only I could hit decline on this RP invite. Yua was still sitting on the sofa, watching me. She had been doing so all night. She really had been putting her all into it, too. She did nothing else the entire time. Did she ever sleep? Maybe she's one of those rare people who can sleep with her eyes open. What was she even trying to accomplish here to begin with? Vengeance! Yua was convinced I had DID, but I knew that wasn't true. She could wait like that all she wants, but Shogun would never come out. She hadn't gagged me, and actually allowed me to speak right after she tied me down. Of course, I'd taken full advantage of that to voice the above thoughts over and over again, and they just went in one ear and out the other. After a few hours of trying to change her mind, I realized how obstinate she really was, so I just gave up. Maybe if you went at it for 1 more hour, you just might convince her. Just 1 more hour. And after that...
あなたが将軍を生み出したんです。あなたが将軍なんです。
You got backwards, sweetheart.
現実逃避の手段。将軍はあなた自身であり、同時にあなたではない別の存在。もう一人のあなた。あなたの負の側面。あなたの弱い心を守るための存在。あなたの狂気。快楽殺人者。手段は選ばない。殺す相手も選ばない。殺すことが存在理由。誰でもよかったんですか？本当にミーアはなぜ選ばれたんですか？答えて。答えてよ。答えてください。答えてほしい。答えないと許しません。
Yua kept mumbling her pathological ramblings over and over and over again, never coming up for air. My room was extremely small, and my only means of covering my ears, my hands, were tied up, so I had no choice but to listen. Didn't you know, Takumi? Anger and hatred is an adequate substitute for oxygen. I thought I was going insane. On top of that, I felt as if I'd only gotten to experience the tip of the iceberg. You're not wrong about that, I'll tell you that much. I started trying to think of a way to escape. I tried pulling the toilet card to weigh my chances of getting out of here. But it didn't work. She did untie my hands and allowed me to go, but she followed me very closely. She stood right behind me the entire time, never taking her eyes off me even when I was doing my business. Yeah, I probably wouldn't be able to go either. And to make matters worse, she even continued spouting those insane ramblings of hers from behind my back. Imagine you're a guy standing at a urinal, trying to empty your bladder, and you got this crazy lady right behind you, rambling incessantly about how you're a psychopathic DID serial killer. Would you be able to do it? I wouldn't. How long was this shit gonna go on for? Good question. I couldn't even get some actual sleep, because who knows when this bitch was gonna snap and kill me out of nowhere. Then again, even if I was awake, I wasn't confident I'd be able to defend myself anyway.
何がきっかけ？どうすれば出てくるんですか？肉体的苦痛、精神的苦痛、性的衝動、トラウマ、偶然。
Yua's murmur suddenly came to a stop. But even then, she was still glaring at me. The room had become dead silent. And yet, given the circumstances, the stillness only served to make me even more tense. Suddenly, the sound of a stomach growling broke the silence. Yours, I assume? I hadn't had anything to eat or drink, so I was obviously hungry. But that still hadn't been me just now. Which meant that Yua was hungry too. Now Yua, I only have one request. Do not think of looking for finger food. I implore you. Moreover, I was sure I'd heard a stomach growling, but Yua's lack of reaction almost made me reconsider. Normal girls. Sarah, damn. Sarah, normal. You know what, Yua? Kill this stupid son of a bitch. If this guy thinks someone like Sarah Tan is normal, even by anime girl standards, he deserves to die. Please, put him out of his misery. Think of it like euthanasia. You'd be doing him, and by extension the world at large, a huge favor. Me especially, because I'm the guy that has to basically control this schmuck. Normal girls, Sarah Tan for example, would have had a way cuter reaction. Yeah, she'd almost likely say something like this. Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
何さ、しょうがないっしょ。食べたいけど、すごく我慢してるんだから。
You consider this a normal response from a girl?
なんでって、それは前にあなたに太ってるって言われたから。でも別にさ、あなたに言われたからダイエットしてるわけじゃないよ。勘違いしないでよね、このポケナス。
I understand. Them horses are real tasty. Ah, what a classic tsundere. As transparent as a glass window. Unless it's stained glass, I think you need a better metaphor. Sarah, you're so cute when you get mad and blush like that, Sarah. Damn it. Situation I was in was really making me want to escape into my delusions. Well, actually, wait, no, don't. I'd rather not.
食べないんですか？
Yua's tone was as ice cold as ever. As I was still sitting, she lowered her gaze down to my feet. Well, I mean, I am familiar with the expression having one's foot in your mouth, but I don't think I want to experience a very literal interpretation of that metaphor. If at all possible. A plate had been placed in front of them. The plate was full of pasta. Tauriko spaghetti, to be precise, served with a finely cut seaweed to garnish. Well, Takumi is not exactly human in the traditional sense, I'll give you that, but last I checked, he doesn't have any mouths on his feet, so yeah. However, it had already been sitting there for around 2 hours, so the pasta probably was all dry and sticky by now. Yua had made it for me. And she tied me up and left without saying a word, then came back about 30 minutes later with a heaping plate of pasta. It seemed she'd gone to the supermarket, bought the ingredients, then cooked them into a pasta for me outside of the container house. What was she plotting by making me a home-cooked meal? I couldn't wrap my head around it. She could have just bought something that was ready-made at the convenience store. Maybe she'd poisoned it. The thought made me want to stay as far away from it as possible. Besides, it wasn't like I could eat it even if I wanted to. My hands were tied up, and the plate was at my feet.
あんたが食べればいい。
Remembering that Yua's stomach had growled, I gave that sarcastic retort.
あなたを肉体的にいたぶろうとか、そんなつもりはないんです。
You called this not torturing a person physically? Starving them?
私はただ、将軍が出てくるのを待っているだけ。だから、食べてください。食べてくれなきゃ困ります。食べて。
Well, what if my DID requires me to be hungry? You ever think of that, Yua?
この状態で食べられると思ってるの？無茶言わないでよ。
Yua stood up, walked up to me, and then she crouched down next to me. Oh, gonna whisper more threats into my ear, are we? I looked away in fear, still holding on to the hope that she'd untie the rope coiled around my hands. You hope for the stupidest things, Takumi. But of course, that wasn't what happened. Instead, Yua picked up the plate, struggled to twirl the dry as hell sticky pasta with a fork, and then, once she finally managed to, she held it out to my mouth.
どうぞ。
嫌だ。食べないぞ。
Okay, open wide, say ah, and its variants were events you could only experience in a roge. Who said it was just a roge? Play something else other than a roge for once in your life. Good lord. Get some variety. This was real life. When things were this tense, all her feeding me did was highlight her murderous intent all the more. At least untie me if you're gonna make me do shit like this. At least if I was untied, I could pretend to eat some and go, "Yup, this tastes like shit. Take it away. Okay, thanks." But here I wasn't even afforded that.
レンジでチンしましょうか？
いらないって言ってるじゃないか。
I thought about knocking a plate out of her hand with my knee. But if I did that, she'd definitely get pissed. And there was no telling what she'd do next. The thought sent chills down my spine. So in the end, I decided to hold back the urge.
分かってください。私が西条くんにこんなことするのは、あなたを救うためでもあるんです。
I don't require saving. Damnation is all I need.
決して
It's all I
あな
deserve.
たを傷つけるためじゃないんですよ。
Yeah, well, I never wanted to be hurt by you, and yet here we are. The fuck are you talking about, Yua? Are you stupid? Wanna die? Who the hell did she think she was? She wanted to save me? Sure, it was true that New Gen, Shogun, and all that stuff scared the living shit out of me, and that I desperately wanted someone to save me. But that someone was clearly excluding Yua. I never asked to be subjected to this crazy bitch's delusions.
食べて。無理にでも食べて。
There was cold pasta twirled around the fork. Yua shoved it toward my mouth.
食べられますよね。
Yua moved even closer, still glaring at me to no end.
食べてください。食べて。
Suddenly, Yua stopped dead in her tracks. Why did this bitch come closer and closer every time she got mad? I kept looking away and clamped my mouth shut. She must have been insane if she thought I'd ever eat something she made. I'd end up with fucking food poisoning. If that's all you end up experiencing, you'd be getting off easy. Okay, you know what? I know, like I said earlier, I know this is probably going to end up resulting in this episode coming out pretty damn short post-production, but I'm gonna go ahead and end things here because, well, I need to do other things in my time here besides continue working on this video, like working on another video, for example. And well, yeah. Also, like I said earlier, I ended up shooting myself in the foot earlier with the force skip thing. So I want to apologize once again for how this episode turned out. Because of that, I'll do my damnedest to make sure it never happens again throughout the rest of this playthrough. So with that being said, I hope that everybody has enjoyed this latest episode of Chaos Head Noah. If you did and you'd like to see more content from me, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe, and I will see you all next time for, well, denying the undoubtedly delicious food that's being shoved right in our faces. Anyway, take care.